All right, welcome to the replay and hello, tea family. How are you this evening? I hope you all are having a wonderful Monday and that your Monday is not a Monday. I am welcoming you all here. We're going to do our Q&A. So say hello in the chat or comments. Let us know what you're drinking tonight if you're interested. I do not have tea tonight. I'm drinking out of my water glass. So I wanted to say hello. We're going to get into questions. And as always, when we do our Q&As each month, feel free to put your questions in the chat or the comments, and we will answer it live. I also get them in advance. So if you think of something in the middle of the month or afterwards, and you're like, oh, I wish I had asked that question, go ahead, send it out, and we will hold it for next month's Q&A. Now, we are doing our Q&A 1 week early, and that's because life is still crazy where I am. As you can see, I am still not back in my regular spot, but that's okay because we are going to progress on. So I wanted to let you all know and give you all a chance to say hello in the chat or comments. Let me know what you're drinking tonight. And I will tell you, I am almost out of black tea where I am, but I do have some left. And so I've been moving to green tea. I've been drinking a lot of Harmony so far this week, which is always nice. Okay, so let's get right into the questions. All right, so for the questions, we have, let's do this first one. How do I know if my tea is bad? Okay, well, we've talked oftentimes that tea doesn't necessarily go bad as much as it kind of fades away, but there are times when tea has gone bad. So when is it time to ditch the tea? Well, if there's absolutely no aroma, you open up that container, there's no smell, you brew the tea, there's no smell of tea, that is a big sign that it's time to ditch that tea. Bye-bye. If the taste feels really flat or off, like or you're not getting a lot of flavor, you're barely getting any flavor. If this is an old tea, then definitely you're going to want to ditch it. If it is a new tea, it hasn't kind of expired, then you may need to go to a slightly better quality tea. Because you should be able to taste something. It shouldn't taste really flat. It should taste like tea, and you should get good flavor out of it. Ah! My cup hit the keyboard. I was worried it was going to do something there. All right. So the other thing is, if it's got mold in there, ditch it. Don't try and drink it. That's absolutely ditching it. So sometimes you will have a tea that has fruit in it or will have an ingredient that doesn't stand the test of unlimited time. And so it will, or if it gets moisture in there, it could potentially start to mold. This is one of the reasons why we're always saying you want airtight container. You want to have it in a dark place. You really want to kind of preserve all of that as much as possible. So if you see mold, ditch that tea. Do not drink it. Do not trust it. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. My handy dandy assistant is giggling in the background. I don't know if you can hear him, but Tio said he's thinking the same thing. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. So that is one of those things that I always want to share is do not do that. That is not something we want to do. So okay, another question is, should I store tea in the refrigerator? This is a really easy answer. No, absolutely not. Remember that mold we were just talking about? Well, one of the things that does that is the moisture, and refrigerators are notorious, no matter which shelf or special system that you have, there's going to be moisture. The other thing is refrigerators will really bring out a lot of aromas, and those can get captured by the tea, and so then your tea's going to taste off. First of all, you get a high content but moisture that could lead to mold, and second of all, you've got flavors that don't necessarily belong in your tea. So 2 very good reasons not to put your tea in the refrigerator. So the next question I was asked when someone asked that, would be the freezer be better? Again, I'm going to say no. One of the best things you could do is let your tea dry if you wanted to reuse it and you weren't going to use it right away. And that means spreading it out and really letting it dry naturally. But the best thing to do, I think, is to drink your tea. Go ahead, brew all 3 times, and just enjoy it. Yes, definitely in a timely manner. Okay. Ooh, it's getting hot in here. Um, okay. Is there a current tea store? Let me try that again. Is there a current tea shortage? No. Yes. Both. Okay. So there is a shortage of matcha, and that is because there has been an increased demand for matcha from Japan. I've talked about this before in other lives and live streams. So that is one. They can only make so much, and so whew, excuse me. The other thing is there are another couple of Japanese varieties, bancha and tencha. And no, I did not take Japanese, so I could be mispronouncing those. Please forgive me. But they also have had an increasing global demand lately. And there is an aging workforce in Japan, which does not help. And so those are leading to shops limiting the amount of tea that can be purchased even in Japan. So there are quite a few Japanese tea shops that are limiting each person to simply one tea tin per person. And most tea tins are about an ounce. Some could be more or less. So they're kind of limiting it right now, and that's because they just don't have enough. So some varieties do have a current shortage right now, but not all teas. So I don't want you to think that all tea is having a short of any kind, but the matchas and some of the other Japanese varieties definitely are. Okay, another question that we received this week is, can I brew tea in a French press? Yes, but I really want to emphasize that but. Yes, you can brew tea in a French press. First caveat, do not brew tea in a French press that you use for coffee or anything else. That French press can only be used for tea. There's going to be flavor contamination or flavor carryover when you try and use any kind of French press that's been used for something else. And so you want to have a French press that is just for tea. Now, if you have that French press and you're only using tea in it, it could be a really great tool for brewing tea. It kind of acts like a very large infuser, and it does allow the leaves to expand to their fullest selves, which we know is going to bring even more flavor because that's one of the things. And there's plenty of room for them to kind of move around and therefore get really full flavor out of the tea. Typically, for most French presses, they're a certain size. You're going to want 1 to 2 teaspoons of tea per cup. You're going to want to add the hot water, and then you're going to want to steep it for that 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes for the black tea brews. You do need to steep it a little bit longer in the French press sometimes, is what I have personally found, and you're adding a little bit more tea in there than you would if you were just brewing, for 1 cup. But it is a great way to get your tea. After it kind of has steeped, then that's when you would slowly push the press down and then, of course, pour everything out. And that way you won't build up that tannic acid. But yes, you can absolutely use a French press for brewing tea. Okay. Now, another question that I had was a really great question that nobody's asked before, and it's going to remind me to remind you that next week We will be doing part 2 of our teapot versus teacup. I was hoping to be able to get back to Kansas before I did that and have the teapots and show you, especially since I have a really beautiful unglazed clay teapot that I was really excited to show everybody and show how it's different. But I will just have you use your imaginations a little bit. Might use some pictures to try and give you some ideas. But we will be doing the teapot versus teacup and which teas are best in which containers and what type of teapots, etc. Next Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time, which is 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Have to remember that because I'm in Eastern Time right now. Okay, and so what was the question? How do you clean a cast iron teapot? And this is actually also kind of how do you clean an unglazed teapot? Well, so let's talk about the unglazed clay teapot. Now, I had a really hard time finding an unglazed clay teapot. And the reason for that is people who create the pottery, our potters, they all know that you want to glaze it, you want to preserve it, etc. They also know that a lot of flavors will transfer into that clay teapot. Now, that's one of the things that we want in that clay teapot. There's a little hint of something we'll be talking about next week. However, they're really hard to find. And because they're hard to find, they're also difficult to know how to clean. So the best way to do it is to rinse that teapot with fresh hot water after every use. That is the simplest way to clean it out. Make sure you get all the leaves out there. Now, the thing about that clay teapot is it's going to absorb that flavor. It's not going to get all the tea out. The tea oils are going to soak into that clay. Now, that's one of the benefits because you're going to get that flavor infused in the teapot, which means when you go to brew the next tea, it's going to be bringing some different nuances and depth of flavor. But the best thing to do is to just rinse it. Now, if something does happen or if it does get stained or you really feel like you have to, then periodically, rarely, but periodically, you can wash it out with just some plain baking soda and hot water, but make sure you rinse really, really well. Now, that's going to sound really familiar as we start to talk about cast iron. So cast iron teapots, again, you're going to want to be careful. Many of them have been glazed on the inside, so it's easy. If it's been glazed, then you can just kind of wash it out with a towel. The best thing to do, though, is to simply rinse it with the hot water after every use. It won't have that same build up, but it will be able to clean. Now, if the inside of the cast iron teapot is glazed, then of course you can wash out the inside. But the problem is you don't want to get the outside of the teapot wet because cast iron can potentially rust. And so you want to make sure you're treating it properly, but we don't want to necessarily season it every time. So what you would do is you would rinse it with the hot water and then immediately dry it. You do not want to take a chance and let it dry naturally. This is one where you're going to want to try and dry it yourself using a paper towel or a regular cloth towel, and then let it sit upside down even longer. Again, if you have a stain on the outside, you do not want to use a steel wool or any kind of harsh scouring pad. They can damage any enamel coating on the inside or on the outside. They can remove the seasoning if it doesn't have an enamel. And so those are not going to be your best turns. And we really don't want to put soap of any kind inside or outside. So the best thing to do if you have a stain is you could use a little bit of baking soda, as little as possible, and then hot water for rinsing. Now, if you do start to get rust on the inside, I have a secret for you. Shh. Don't tell everybody. This will be your secret, okay? There is a way that is very unique that can remove rust from the inside of a cast iron teapot. Are you ready? Are you ready? Boil some water with some old green tea leaves. Leave it in there for about 30 minutes. So, you have those 3 brews of that Emerald Garden green tea blend. Great. Don't dump it. Put it in the teapot. Boil it up. Boil the water with those old green tea leaves. Let it set for 30 minutes, or boil it for 30 minutes, and then let it set for 24 hours. Then you should be able to go in and rinse, and the rust should be gone, or at the very worst, you're going to wipe it out. Now, if that does not get all the rust out of the inside, you could also put boiling water with a tiny bit of vinegar in there, but that could potentially add some flavors to your tea that you don't want. I would recommend go ahead with like the baking soda in the hot water, or try the green tea in the hot water. Uh, I have not necessarily found it to be a problem with a cast iron teapot. Letting it dry, drying it out, and then letting it dry naturally. I typically don't have any rust that will build up because I've let it dry, and that is where you're going to want to wipe it out really well inside, and then again still put it upside down so the big hole is at the bottom, and then kind of let it sit on a towel or whatnot to really allow all that moisture to escape. A lot of times I will put it that way. We'll put it upside down and we kind of prop it so there's still some airflow. Or then after it's completely dry inside, I will still let it sit upright with it open for another hour or so, just to make sure it's really completely dry inside. So that is how you would clean a cast iron teapot. Those were the questions that I had. Handy dandy assistant, do we have any more questions that came in while I was chit-chatting away? I don't see any questions anyway. So I do want to remind you that we will not be shipping any orders till at least the end of May. We are hoping sometime in the beginning of June to be able to ship orders again, but we are away from where all our tea supplies are, and so I can't really ship anything right now. And then let's see, we will be back next week. We'll be having part 2 of our session. And then we will have a special treat the end of, or the next week after that, on the 24th, we're going to be talking about Sunlit Orchard, which is one of our caffeine-free blends. It's an apple ginger tea. And then I've got a real surprise for you at the end of the month. So we'll have to see about that one. All right. I don't see any other questions as I was giving you a chance. So I want to say thanks for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you all later, everybody.